Hello everybody, welcome to Bible Corner Reviews. Today I'm reviewing another King James Bible. This one is the center column reference from Thomas Nelson. This is the black genuine leather, and this edition was released this year, and so this is a new one that is available. Let's take a quick look at the box. You have your traditional King James colors with Thomas Nelson, which is a gold and gray. You have some information on the front, comfort print, Christ's words in red, and 73,000 cross references. The back has a couple features. Pause and look at those if you so desire. 9.5 point font, sample of the text, and this one does retail for $129.99. And we will look at that here in a second. So here's the Bible. The genuine leather on this is quite durable feeling. I think it's a pressed grain. There's a very uniformity to the design here, so I don't think it's natural. You have perimeter stitching, very finely done. I think they did a great job there. It's a fairly thick piece of leather as well. It reminds me of some bonded leathers as far as the thickness goes, but it is a genuine leather, and I think for Thomas Nelson that is a calf or cowhide. The spine has 5 raised hubs, which have decorative gilt lines on the top and bottom of each hub. The hubs come all the way to the edge of the block. There's Holy Bible, KJV, and the Thomas Nelson logo. A very simple spine, but I do enjoy the raised hubs. The back has the ISBN number on there. No art gilding, just the gold pages. They're decent. They're not special, but they don't need to be in a non-premium Bible. 2 3/8-inch ribbons, double satin, a gold and a black, and then there is black head and tail bands. The dimensions on this Bible are 9.25 inches tall by 6 3/16 inches wide by 1 inch thick, so it is a Thinline Bible. Liner is a heavy-duty cardstock. You can see there is reinforcement tape here along the edge, so it is well made. There is a single end sheet that doubles as the end paper here, and then you have the Holy Bible presentation page. Those are your only cardstock. Holy Bible. The opening page containing Old and New Testaments, Authorized King James Version, and the publication page here. Not very much on there. You'll see that it is HarperCollins, Thomas Nelson. This one is printed in South Korea. You can see it is a 2023 publication. And it does have the comfort print, so I don't see it on here, but I believe that is the 2K Denmark design for the text. Here's the introductory essay for the King James Bible. Table of contents, abbreviations for the table of contents, and the notes about the King James Bible. This one actually I think is more on the Bible itself, not just the King James. So that's a nice extra feature. There's a how to study the Bible essay at the beginning. You'll notice as I go throughout, this one does have a couple more study helps compared to some other Bibles. Getting to know God essay. So there are some references, and it's by points. So there's 6 points there, and then it's a sort of introductory to that subject. Then there is the Old Testament, and this Bible is laying flat at Genesis. It is sticking up a tiny bit, but with the non-edge-lined construction, it will break in and lay flat fairly quickly. The books of the Bible have an introduction. It contains a blurb on the context and the themes, and there's a title, author, date, and genre. So it's a basic intro, but it does contain enough information to be helpful. And I will point out here that this has overcast stitching, And again, as I pointed out in my review of the paragraph style Bible, all the Korean Bibles I've reviewed do have overcast stitching, and this one again has it in the front and the back. And that is in Genesis 3, so it's fairly early on in the text. So here's the layout. It's a 9.5 point text, verse by verse, and you'll see that the subject headings are within the text. The cross references are in the center column, and they are fairly easily spaced. You'll see that they are just slightly smaller than the actual text size. So if this is a 9.5, I'm guessing these are probably a 7 point cross reference. Verse numbers are black, and the text is justified. So the columns are perfectly square and lined up. And that is also the case with the verse numbers. So the verse numbers come right up to the edge of the column. For me, that's a little bit cumbersome sometimes because it kind of blends the two together. There are several Bibles that have that design. I prefer, personally, if they're indented just a tiny bit. That helps differentiate the text from the verse numbers. But that is how they did it, and this is a very traditional layout, so it's not a big deal, and a lot of people really won't mind. The paper, I believe, is a 36 GSM. It's fairly thick, and this is line match text, so you can see that very little shows through. It is very easy to read. The margins on this edition are 9/16 for the margin, and the gutter is very, very similar to that. Plenty of room, and no matter where you're at in this Bible, the text stays on the flat of the page because that margin does keep it out a little bit. Poetic settings are still verse by verse, and as is often the case with Bibles that are verse by verse, there can be some difficulty in distinguishing paragraphs. But in this case, I believe that in the poetic settings, there are paragraph breaks. The text is not bold. The verse numbers are not bold for paragraph beginnings. So really, when you're going through this Bible, the poetic and the narrative settings look the same because since it's justified, it's flat on both edges. And so it's really hard to tell when you're in poetic or narrative. So far, I have not seen much variation in text color. There are a couple pages that are a little bit darker in the black than others, but overall, it's very consistent. Books of the Bible begin on a new page, so it could be right or left side, but there are no books beginning halfway down the page. I prefer this layout, but the other does conserve space for a Bible, so I've seen it done both ways, and I've reviewed Bibles from both perspectives. The New Testament has words of Christ in red. You can see that the verse numbers are still black, so it's very easy to locate your place. Whenever the text or the cross-references are too much for one page, they will overflow into the lower right-hand column of text. So let me find a New Testament passage here, probably in Romans. So there's more text or reference on this than can fill the center column, so it overflows into the right-hand column of text at the bottom of the page. And as is traditional with many center column references, the upper half is in reference to the left-hand side of the page, and the bottom half is at reference to the right side verses. I think that's pretty common with verse by verse and center column reference because it can be difficult to locate which side is which if it was just all mixed up. So it kind of makes sense, but I like to point out the obvious because sometimes it is not so obvious if you're not looking for it. So getting to the back of the Bible, we have a couple more features here. We have the history of the Red Letter Bible. I think this is very interesting because for me personally, red letter is a little bit annoying sometimes, but I do appreciate why it was invented. And so it's nice to have that little snippet of history in here. I think it's very helpful. There's a 30-day of getting to know God reading plan. Helps you go through some of the major themes of Scripture pertaining to who God is. And the same for Jesus. There's a 30 Days of Getting to Know Jesus reading plan. And then we have note paper. There's 26 note paper pages. So this is something I really do appreciate. And I wish all Bibles had this. And I'm not one that usually writes in my Bibles. I do pick several to write in. But having all the note paper in the back is kind of one way to record things without having to feel like you're writing up and marking up your biblical passages. So I just really like having that option available. Even if you don't use it, it is really nice to have. The maps are the traditional Thomas Nelson Bible maps. They're very well done. Nice and colorful, but not too bold. And there are 8 of those, including the one of Jerusalem, which some people don't count as a map, but it is a map. And then the end has the similar end sheet with the reinforcement tape. So I had a couple comparisons to make. One was just a contrast, and that was with the paragraph style King James that I reviewed recently. I will put links in the description to the Bibles that I compare here. This is the paragraph style King James that just came out, and you can see that, as with many other Bibles, the text is in paragraph, not verse by verse. So this is a traditional. The verse by verse is what typically you would find in a King James Bible. This is a little bit more modern and a newer version and option and layout that has been developed for the King James that's not as common. So a lot of people have really liked this one, and this is just going to be a reckoning back to older traditions. The second one I wanted to compare was of a similar variety but different translation, and that is the New King James Classic Verse by Verse Center Column Reference Bible. And I have reviewed this one as well. This is one of my favorite center column reference Bibles. And you can see there are a couple differences, but a couple similarities as well. So I will flip this one here. The similarities are obviously the center column reference and the justified text and columns. So you can see here on the New King James that they are smooth on both sides, as well as the King James. One of the differences in the New King James is the red accents and the verse numbers, and then also the indented verse numbers, where as in the King James, they are also justified. In the New King James, they are inset and spaced from the text a little bit, so it's a little bit easier to read or locate. Another difference that's minor but notable is that for the New King James, your references again pertain top to the left hand, bottom to the right hand, but they're divided. So whereas in the King James, they are evenly spaced regardless of the number of references, in the New King James, if there's a little bit, then they're just bunched at the top and bottom, and they work from the top in, where these ones are spaced evenly throughout. Those are the major differences, and I believe the text size on the New King James is a 10 point, not a 9.5. Other than that, they are very similar, and obviously a consideration to make if you are a King James or a New King James user. So there you have it. That is the King James Version Center Column Reference Bible in the black genuine leather. There are several options available for this edition. They also have a series with the Apocrypha added with the center column reference layout, as well as several non-leather options that are around $39. This one you can pick up for around $85, $86 on select retailers. So the $130 price tag on the box is obviously it's the retail, so you're going to be able to find it for cheaper. So hopefully this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening.